Hello, beautiful souls. Here we are for chapter 8. What is your story? Here are some of the questions that came with this chapter. What inspires you? What are you motivated to do? What is the nature of your thoughts as you tell someone your story? How do you feel when you tell someone your story? Does your current story support your growth? If not, how can you revise it so that it does? This one really hit me. I remember being 5 years old and sitting on the steps at my house in the projects of Woburn, waiting for my father to come pick me up. At the time, my biological mom had custody of me. I remember in that moment recognizing how powerful my mind was in creating the life I knew I wanted to have. I knew I wanted to be anything but what I was growing up around, and somehow I knew I personally had the ability to make my life what I wanted it to be. I believe this to have been the starting point for the direction in which my life would unfold. I like to say I'm the most unconventional conventionalist I know. Because I have done the things, I've had the jobs, I've received the degrees. There have been times where I've wanted to zig when everyone else was zagging, but I zagged in spite of. Meanwhile, innately, there was always a burning desire for more. A desire to be more, do more, see more, love more, create more, experience more. Mediocrity was my biggest fear, and living in between the lines someone else mustered up for me was never going to fly, despite the times I tried to convince myself otherwise. I tell people all the time, find what makes you happy. What makes you proud to get out of bed in the morning and do that? If you are happy and you are enjoying your life and having fun along the way, you're doing it right. There is no special recipe or one-size-fits-all approach to living your best life. Some people can work the 9 to 5 and it works for them and they want to work up the corporate ladder and run major companies, and that's so awesome. If they're happy, I'm on board. That lifestyle, though, was never for me. I felt restricted, unable to explore my creative side, rarely challenged, always desiring something more, and never truly feeling content. It was good enough living, but it didn't light up my soul, which is the living I knew I needed, that I wanted, that I was missing out on. Somehow, life gets the best of you, and 21 suddenly turns into 30, and you wonder why you never took that small step forward all those years ago. However, the caveat to that in itself is that everything does happen according to plan, and sometimes it just is the right time for something. It takes another job, another experience, another lesson if you want to take yourself to that next level of living and healing and growing and evolving. I come from 2 addicts, one more functional than the other, but nonetheless 2 addicts. I am an anomaly turning out the way I have. At a young age, I made the decision I would carve a new path for myself, that I would rise against the chaos around me and create a really beautiful life for myself. All the while, I wasn't quite sure what that beautiful life entailed. I wasn't even sure what my definition of success truly was. Sure, I had the definition of a beautiful life and success from what society had portrayed to me, but on a soul level, it wasn't really in my stream of consciousness until much later in my life. I made decision after decision that I thought would position me in a place to be successful. I made decisions based off of what I thought I should do to make the people around me proud, to achieve as much as possible, do as much as possible, to reach the goals I had in mind of reaching success. Yet somehow, I was always getting further and further away from what I perceived as successful at the time. One of the biggest indicators for success in my life, most of my life, was school. It wasn't even a question that I would be going to college after high school. It was a given. It wasn't even an option to go to a community college either. That was considered for the people who were not that smart or were troubled, as my peers and advisors would say. The community college route wasn't for the person that wanted to achieve success, it was for the slacker. So of course I wanted to get into the best college possible. I wasn't even thinking about the debt or the type of degree. I really just wanted notoriety to some extent. A school that screamed from the rooftop, she is smart, she has it going on, as if that was the biggest piece of my identity, and it surely was for many years, and for many, many years. I wore it like a badge of armor. I went to Northeastern, I would say. Getting into college was the easy part. Figuring out what I wanted for my life and what I wanted for a major was a whole other story. I remember picking a major based off of a conversation I had with a friend I met at orientation. It was in international studies or humanities. I soon switched into organizational communication with a minor in business. I was 18 years old, determining my fate with not even the first clue about what I desired, what I wanted, who I truly was. I didn't have the self-awareness, knowledge, and love I needed to confidently make a choice to pave the way for a future that felt right with my soul. So I clung to what I thought I knew I wanted. Business was a sure thing. Business was the type of degree you could use for anything. You could have your pick with jobs, and it didn't really pigeonhole you too much into one field like nursing or physical therapy. I always strayed away from anything too mathematical, so engineering was out, finance as a concentration was out. I had told myself from the third grade that I was bad at math, so presumably I was bad at math. I always found a way to get A's, but it certainly wasn't my strong suit, and I definitely veered and shied away from math whenever I could. I definitely didn't think I was smart enough at the time to pursue a degree with a heavy math focus. So I stuck with the humanities and business because, let's face it, communication and people were always my strong suit. I knew I wanted to be my own boss and do my own thing. I came from a family of small entrepreneurs. All of my dad's sisters owned their own hair salons. My father had his own construction company. My grandmother was in real estate. My grandfather was a painter. My great-grandfather started an oil company after coming here from Armenia. It was in my blood to be on my own. I wasn't challenged or pushed outside the limits of possibility. I got by, I did well, and I was just as lost graduating college as I was when I entered college. Sure, it was a blast. I met amazing people and experienced so many things, but I was lost the whole time. I definitely wasn't taking care of myself. I was partying really hard, not eating well, barely working out, drinking heavily, and just all around having poor self-care habits. I had the piece of paper though, so kudos to me for that. As soon as I graduated, I turned down the opportunity for a Fortune 500 company to join a real estate company, doing primarily rentals in the city. Something you don't even need a high school diploma to do, go figure. I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the guy I was dating at the time owned his own brokerage in Brighton, so it encouraged me to pursue it. I had been around real estate most of my life. My dad owned a multifamily property in South Boston, so I certainly knew it was a great way to make money and passive income and a way to build wealth. I'll never forget the day I made $12,000 in one day. It was a Sunday. I was working for a place called Venture Real Estate in the basement in Brighton at the time. No one else wanted to work, so I closed several deals back to back and was at the top producing agent my first month. I learned quickly how to manage my money, however, as after that $12,000, I didn't make anything else for another 3 months. I was subletting an apartment in downtown Boston for the summer, the Greenhouse Apartments. It was a cool experience. It was the first time I had paid my own rent. I was paying a very discounted rate too because my friend was away for the summer, so she gave me a good deal on the place. After the summer, I moved in with my boyfriend in his condo. It was a place he had bought with his ex-girlfriend. Talk about awkward. But at the time, it worked. I worked down the street, so it just made sense. It wasn't a healthy relationship, but we shared one thing in common. We liked working for ourselves, having free time, traveling, boating, spending time at the lake, going out to eat, enjoying life, you name it. We did it all. It was almost like a vacation for me. To be honest, a lot of it is a blur, like the rest of my life. I feel like I have blocked a lot of stuff out. I have gone through and seen a lot in my short time being here. I spent several years living life that way. Summers on the harbor at Marina Bay and in New Hampshire at the cottage, time and financial freedom. It was easier too because I had minimal bills and I was sharing costs with someone else. I reached a point where I started to get restless. I turned down a few opportunities to go work for big real estate firms like Coldwell and Keller Williams. I always liked the feel of a small brokerage office rather than a big, large company. Hindsight might not have been the worst idea, as I was essentially building my business from the ground up and mostly helping friends and family, so it grew at a much slower pace. I just didn't like the idea of giving half my money away to royalties, desk fees, and all of the other fees you get stuck paying when you work for a large company that already has an established notoriety in the business. I also had this idea that I was going to be the leader of my own company and CEO of my own life. So I always put myself in jobs that didn't fully pay me what I knew I was valued because I never wanted to feel too comfortable to leave. This is a true story and was my mindset for most of my 20s. I never made more than $50,000 all through my 20s. I exceeded it with real estate deals when I went to part-time, and I would sell 1 to 2 houses per year, which would add another $10,000 to $20,000 on top of my base salary at whatever company I was working for at the time. Looking back, maybe I should have worked in the city trying to make the 6 figures so I could have had enough seed money to start one of the million ideas I had in between. As the saying goes, it all happens as it is meant to happen, and to be honest, I truly believe it. I don't have any regrets. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, I am grateful for all of it. I wouldn't be the woman I am today if it weren't for all of it.